Hey y'all, and welcome to the kitchen. Today we have a delicious shortcut supper that we're going to cook together, and I'm going to tell you, there is not many times that we sit around our dinner table and say, this may be better than the original version, but we actually said this when we had this earlier this week. So this is my Sicilian chicken spaghetti. It is a one-pan dinner. It is also ready in 20 to 25 minutes. So it cannot be beat as far as speed, taste, and cleanup. We are happy when things happen in one pan. So let's get started. First things first, I'm going to get about medium-high heat going underneath my pan. And I'm going to chop up my chicken breast. Now what I have here is just 2 chicken breasts. It's going to be about 1.5 pounds of meat. And when I chop up my chicken breast, that's going to speed up this process. You think, oh, well, if you cook it whole and chop it at the end, you know, that's going to save you touching raw chicken. But at the same time, if you're in a hurry, this is the way to get it done in a flash. And you know what? Honest to goodness, this is a good way to get more flavor on your chicken because every inch of the chicken actually touches the seasoning and more of it touches the pan. So you're getting that brown food caramelized flavor that tastes so good, and actually getting more flavor on each bite of chicken. So I'm going to cut my chicken in about little 1-inch cubes like that. If you see a little tendon hanging off, always take that off. A little fat won't hurt anybody, but if it's tendon, then you don't want to eat that. That's a little bit harder to chew. So we're going to go with like just not absolutely uniform, but as close to little 1-inch cubes as possible. When I get my chicken cubed up like this, I always use a glass or metal cutting board on top of my wooden one, just because that keeps me from contaminating what I'm going to use for the rest of the time. But if you only have one cutting board, that's fine. Use it, but go ahead and wash it completely with very hot water. Dry it completely and make sure you're not cross-contaminating anything that you're not going to be cooking with raw meat. And that's meat of any kind, but specifically with poultry, you want to be extra careful. Now, I will say this is also a very budget-friendly meal because it actually takes what you get in the chicken department and it stretches it a very long way. So where normally 2 pieces of chicken is going to feed 2 people, these 2 pieces of chicken are going to feed up to 6 people. 4 to 6 adults can eat this. I made it for my family last week one day, and we don't have the boys here with us right now, so it's just me and Richard and the girls, and we ate this twice with leftovers, and the girls actually eat it well, so it's not like they were just showing up and not participating. They loved this too. Anything with pasta is going to usually go over pretty good with both of the girls, especially with Hannah. Lily's a noodle girl, but she's a ramen noodle girl if she has her way about it. Okay, so I've got all of my chicken prepped. I'm going to go ahead and take my plate with the raw chicken over to the sink. We're not going to want to cross-contaminate with that. I'm going to wash my hands. And if you notice, I used a different knife too. That keeps me from having to wash my knife in between. And if your goal is shortcut and fast supper, the less you have to wash, the better in between. Okay, so now I'm going to get some olive oil in my pan, and I'm going to just go in with about a tablespoon or 2, just enough to cover the bottom, and I'm going to season this chicken. Now I'm going to use a garlic and herb blend because that's going to save us a step or 2 just pulling out different spices. But if you don't have a garlic and herb blend, don't fear. All you have to do is mix some garlic powder and Italian seasoning, about 50-50, and then you're going to add salt to that. About what measurements I would use is 2 tablespoons Italian seasoning, 2 tablespoons of garlic powder to 1 tablespoon of salt, and that's going to get you your own garlic and herb seasoning that you can keep on hand. But I'm going to use a pre-mixed garlic and herb seasoning because I'm trying to keep the amount of ingredients that I'm using down. So I'm just going to season my chicken all over before it goes into the pan. And then once it gets in the pan and I get it moving around, I'm going to season it again on the other side. So I'm going to go in with all of my chicken. And that garlic and herb seasoning, I'm telling you, it smells so good. It goes a long way on everything I have ever put it on. It goes on chicken, it goes on steak. I even put it on roasted vegetables. A very good all-purpose seasoning blend to have a garlic and herb situation around. So I'm going to get a little seasoning on the top, and then I'm going to crank my heat a little higher now that we've got everything in the pan, and that chicken is going to get started. Now what you're going to look for here is you're going to look for browning on your first side. You're going to flip it over and stir them around, and then every other flavor is going to get built right in this pan, so all of the chicken browning is going to remain with the dish and make everything super tasty. So the next thing I'm going to grab is an onion. I'm going to use about half of this onion, which would be about a cup of diced onions. If you're using the frozen onions out of the package in the frozen food section, which I absolutely love those, about a cup of that, and you're going to have about half of the bag gone. That's what you need for this dish. Okay. This is a learning opportunity. I just busted open this onion, and it looks like that on the inside. Sometimes you can save half of the onion, sometimes you can't. So I've got another onion on hand over here I'm going to grab. Try to remember where I actually put my other little onion guy. Here we go. And this one's a tiny little guy, so we're going to use all of him to get our cup. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a whole onion and it's just gone, and it's just what it is. Oftentimes that happens with a potato too. You get a bag of potatoes and one guy just isn't going to make it. Par for the course. Like I said, sometimes you can save them, sometimes you can't. And that was a not savable kind. Okay, we're going to go in with about a cup of onion, and this is this whole little guy right here. We chop halfway through, we roll it forward, and keep our fingers curled under and get the rest of the onion. One way, curled under fingers, the other way. And just like that, it's done. No tears. A sharp knife is your best friend when you're chopping, especially when you're chopping onions, because the less breakdown that you get of the actual onion itself, and a dull knife just kind of crushes it. That'll keep you from crying as much. That sharp knife. It just cuts right through. Okay. Now, that is browning. My onion's in there too. I'm going to put a little bit of salt. Because remember, there was a little salt in my garlic and herb seasoning, but not a ton. And a little bit of black pepper. We like to do our freshly cracked if we can. If you can't, use about a teaspoon of your black pepper that's pre-cracked. I'm going to do about 20 turns. But I'm not counting. I'm talking, so that was a guess. Pretty par for the course. Not counting and talking. Next thing we're going to get is some tomato products and a little bit of minced garlic. So my minced garlic, we're going to let this do some work before we get our minced garlic in, because if your minced garlic burns, then it's going to taste really bitter in your pan. So you want to let this go for a couple minutes, get some browning on it, get your onions beginning to do their little translucent softening, and then after about 2 minutes, we can put in our garlic. So I've got some tomato paste and diced tomatoes. Because this is a shortcut supper, we are going to use marinara sauce, but we are going to use also these canned products that's going to stretch that marinara sauce and give it a little bit more of a hearty, rustic texture. I love a diced tomato in this kind of application because I like to get a bite of tomato in my food. Makes me feel a little bit more authentic. And tomato paste is just a punch of tomato flavor. We've talked about it before, but if in case this is ever the first one that you're watching, I am going to tell you, tomato paste acts like herbs do. Once it's been in a can for a while, you're going to need to wake it up to have a lot of good flavor. So I put it in my dish a good ways toward the beginning, so it gets the most contact with heat. So when I get about 2 tablespoons in, I'm going to make a well in the middle of here, and I'm going to get that in the middle of the well. Let me go ahead and make my well. And it's going to actually touch on the heat, and it's going to wake up the flavor. And it's going to just give a rich and very deep tomato flavor to your dish. That's that slow cooked flavor without a lot of time. It's so nice to have these products like this in our refrigerator or in our grocery store right now in this world that we live in, because you can take a 20 to 30 minute dish and make it taste like it's been cooking for hours because of the things that we have in our grocery store to put in these dishes. Like chicken bouillon, that's something that we've talked about quite a bit before. That's an easy thing just to add long cooked flavor to your food. Okay, so I'm going in with about 2 tablespoons here of garlic. And I'm going to stir around this tomato paste and the garlic before I add in my diced tomatoes. And I have some browning happening on my chicken, which is exactly what I want. We don't want steamed chicken here. We want really nice brown chicken. Smells amazing. I am seeing that I don't like how little of the Italian seasoning that I'm seeing, so I'm going to add about a teaspoon or so more of the garlic and herb just to get a little punch of herb in there. Sometimes it's hard to tell when you have a mountain of chicken like that, but you can look at your chicken and see whether it's got enough herbs on it to whether each individual has a lot of flecks of that herbiness. That sound is what you're looking for. Now we're going to serve this with some spaghetti. I've already got my spaghetti cooked, but if I had not had my spaghetti cooked, that would be boiling at the same time. Really, one of the longest things of this whole dish is bringing your water to a boil and boiling your pasta. Typically, we have talked a lot of times about how we get our pasta water up to a boil. We always put a lid on your pasta pot to bring it up to a boil quicker. Then you season it with salt until it tastes like the ocean. I've actually seen Italian chefs in Italy head out to the ocean, scoop up a whole pot full of water to boil their pasta in right out of the ocean. That's how serious Italians are about their pasta water tasting like the ocean. Okay, so this smells amazing. We got some browning going on, and I'm going to get my diced tomatoes in here. Now this is a process where order kind of really does matter for flavor, and actually for the time, because with the flavor here, you're going to want these tomatoes that are diced to have some time on the heat before you put any more liquid into the pan. You want the heat to touch onto them and get them woken up just like the tomato paste, but you also want them to have a moment to get broken down and to lose that canned flavor. So sometimes when things have been sitting in the can for a while, they need to have a good little bit of cook time to stop tasting like that. And this, when you are in a shortcut situation, is how you do it. You don't add too much liquid to the pan until you absolutely have to. So in this case, those tomatoes are going to cook for just a few minutes. I'm going to turn my heat to medium, and then I'm going to get in a jar of marinara sauce. I love tomato basil marinara, and if I can find organic, I always get that. But if you have a favorite marinara sauce that is your pick, you can use that, or you can also use tomato sauce with about a tablespoon of Italian seasoning, a tablespoon of garlic, and some salt added to it, and then you've got your own marinara to go in. This is just shortcut suppers after all, so we're going to use the shortcut. Now that's been in about a minute. We're going to go in with my jar of sauce, and here's a trick. I never throw away my jar without getting a little water in it and rinsing it to where all of my tomato sauce is going to end up in my dish. I'm not going to let some of this go to waste and end up in the trash can. So I just put my lid right back on, give it a little shake, shake. In it goes. Now your chicken is going to be almost totally cooked through at this point. So we're going to just stick a lid on it, turn your heat down to about medium low, and let this simmer for 5 or so minutes. And we'll be ready to serve it up on some spaghetti. I'll be right back.